I wanted to talk about altered states of consciousness, a dear topic of mine. So within the experiential landscape that I've talked about before, all the experiences you had in your life and all that taste, all the different characteristics, altered states don't just add more space to that landscape. To me, it adds another dimension. So it's completely different. It's a different concept. There are different ways to reach altered states of consciousness. Some are voluntary, some are involuntary. You can achieve them nowadays through different methods: breath work, meditation, psychedelics. Involuntarily, you can obviously have near-death experiences and other types of quite drastic experiences. And although they kind of vary, I haven't experienced them all, but I would assume that they vary in their quality. I believe that they all point towards the same things. They're all pointers we can use, and they all point towards non-physical consciousness, invariably. That's the entire point. And the way they do that is, it's like a glitch in the matrix. It's kind of like if you think, well, what I'm seeing is reality, then suddenly it's glitch, and you're like, wait, what? What happened? That's not supposed to happen. But it's obviously not restricted to the visual. It's in a different dimension entirely, and that's why it's so powerful. So there's kind of two consequences to that, experiencing this glitch. First of all, you have immediate acknowledgement that your fabricated reality construct is not complete, or it's perhaps faulty. So there's an issue like, oh, hang on, that shouldn't be possible. I didn't factor in something. And the second one is that glitch it permanently alters the way you perceive reality. So imagine like you have a pot, it's intact, and then suddenly it's cracked, and there's something coming through those cracks, and that's your higher consciousness. You have free will, so if you experience an altered states of consciousness like that, you can attempt to patch together the cracks. I don't want this to come through. This is way too threatening to the ego. So no, hang on. This is not happening. And there's plenty of reasons to explain it, right? And you would say, well, it was an hallucination. That was like, you can find purely physical things, explanations to whatever happened to you, and that's legit. It's your experience, so you can choose to manage it as you will. And the more challenging, but to me certainly better alternative to trying to patch your reality back together is to integrate the new experience into your reality and make it bigger, and acknowledge the fact that you might have had not all the pieces together. And I will always come back to the fact that I'm a scientist, and I have a deeply scientific viewpoint. And to me, a glitch like that triggers somewhat of a scientific crisis, right? Because I'm like, hey, hang on, wait, what? Like, this is not how I worked as a scientist, and my approach as a scientist might be faulty too. So how am I going to reconcile that or integrate that? And as a scientist, well, I guess my way to integrate an altered state of consciousness is it's a perfectly valid way to suddenly acknowledge the experiential aspect of life and reality. You can't just be a passive observer. That glitch invites you to the experiential side of things. And then suddenly, as a scientist, everything can start to make sense. Everything can click together. Because that's exactly what I also explained in a previous post. All these quantum realities, the fact that observation alters reality. Now you can attempt as you wish to, no, I don't want to participate, I just want to observe. You're still gonna influence what you're observing. So might as well just do it to its fullest extent and be participating. Life is experiential. It can't be just like explained observationally. It doesn't work. And that's why I perceive that materialism or materialistic science, kind of the dogmatic science that says, well, we need to be able to observe things, measure things, be completely objective, and then we have a proper appreciation of what the fabric of reality is. Now this is kind of a safe zone, right? It's borderline cowardly, but I don't want to be too aggressive here. So let's say that science hides behind a safe zone, in which the scientist doesn't attempt not to get involved into what it's measuring and what it's attempting to characterize. So scientists just study and observe instead of participating. And of course, intrinsically, that's what I always say. No experience is wrong. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. To just choose to be a materialistic scientist, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's actually probably tremendous value for that, for your soul and for society as well. But in the bigger picture of things, it kind of warrants humility and acknowledgement that what these are the rules of the game. These are the rules of science. We are here to characterize a limited, restricted aspect of reality. We're not going there. If you would be humble enough to acknowledge that, I guess it wouldn't be that bad, right? You would say, well, this is the line here, and we're not going further because this is what we call science. An interesting aspect about these things, again, from a soul's perspective, everything has value. It's your experience. It's what you chose to do this lifetime, until you choose to do differently, perhaps in the same lifetime. But the thing is, from a soul's perspective, you are still participating, right? You don't have a choice. So even your non-active participation is still participation. So it's almost like in video game, you have those non-playing characters, right? They're just there. Wasn't there even a movie about that? And the guy tries suddenly to become a playing character. Anyway, so in that case, you just playing a non-playing character. You're still playing. You don't have a choice, but you can choose to ignore that fact and just be the non-playing character and limit yourself to that. And so in that context, it's like the old analogy of the orange, right? You can measure all the chemicals you want, the pH, you can measure nutrients and everything with an orange. It doesn't mean you're gonna know how it tastes. You're not gonna know how it tastes. And so even let's assume if you would want to characterize altered states of consciousness in the lab, you hook up the person and the brain with all sorts of measuring elements. You can measure all you want. You can measure brainwave activities and anything else. It doesn't mean that you will come even close to understanding what happened, what it feels like, what it means. You will perhaps detect a brainwave activity, a change. What does that mean? You're gonna publish a paper saying, oh yeah, we have a statistically significant alteration in brainwave. We took 10 participants. And so what? As a scientist, did you learn more about reality? Did you learn anything? I don't know. It's reality wants you to participate, and obviously that was my choice to participate, start participating. But science is limited in that way, and as a scientist, those states open a different perspective, and then suddenly what you thought was hardcore science suddenly becomes the surface, and you barely scratched it. You just looked at, oh yeah, well, this is how these highly physical things behave. But there's so much underneath the surface. And I mean, we could discuss for hours, why is it like that, and there's obviously societal rules and reasons, and politics gets involved in science as well. But I think that at the end of the day, a scientist is always a human, and to me, one of the main reasons why science doesn't go there is out of fear. Not fear of being mocked or fear of anything, because ultimately within every single human, a scientist, it's a fear of participation, because suddenly if you participate and actions have consequences, and you can change reality, and you can interact with reality, and you can create your own bit of reality, that carries tremendous responsibility. What are you gonna choose? You can't hide anymore. Like, okay, we give you all this power, what are you doing with it? Right? Except for a few psychopaths probably, that is not a comfortable situation to be in. To having that amount of power and responsibility is not an easy thing for most people, for almost everyone. But this is, you cannot remove yourself from that. It's through subjectivity and through lived experience that you learn more. That, as I said in one of my first posts, me defining myself as a scientist, it's the old school definition of science, the really deep understanding of reality. Of course, you can specialize in either biological, physical, or chemical area, but at the end of the day, what is your motivation to understand all this? My motivation is, what's all this here? What are we doing? So obviously I can understand what's happening in my body right now. How can I make my body function better? So it's just because you need to know so much content that obviously you need to specialize in one thing. You can't look at it all, but my purpose is clearly, it's to understand more about reality, and it's only understood via subjectivity. If you're looking at it again, like more spiritually, we are all fragments of God, and this is how God experiences itself. It had to fragment so that every fragment can reflect the entirety of it. You cannot remove yourself from that. You are that. So you can obviously say, nope, I don't want that. And it's fine. You're gonna spend a lifetime doing that, and there's absolutely no problem with that. You're just gonna, once you pass over, it's gonna be a wake-up call, and you're like, oh, okay, I messed it up. I'll go back again. Um, you cannot remove it. You can remove. You can make the choice to refuse that responsibility or part of the whole that you can play. You can refuse. That's fine. But the fact is that you are part of the whole, and sooner or later you will play that part, so that we can all get whole together again. And also, your subjectivity, even as a scientist, is an important part of the whole. Without, the picture is not complete. And I'm not saying everyone should seek altered states of consciousness, but when you're ready, it kind of calls you, and it definitely called me. And the most powerful experience was roughly 10 years ago, perhaps a bit more or less, I can't remember. So I went to Peru and to experience what ayahuasca is like. You know, I heard a lot about it. Now, at that stage, you know, I was scientifically advanced, I was spiritually advanced. It was just the right time. You know, I think there's definitely not everyone should attempt those kind of experiences, and there's a reason for that. I felt ready, I felt called, so I thought, you know, scientifically, you know, let's go as objectively as we can and see, and just experience it. And it was a tremendous experience. Like but it's also hard. Well, first of all, let me say, so talking about the psychedelics in particular, I see absolutely no recreational aspect to these things at all, and I would never be a proponent of using them recreationally, with recreationally meaning fun. Let's have fun, or I'm bored, or I don't know what else to do, or I heard X, Y, and Z did it, I want to have a blast. 0%, no, none whatsoever. Do I believe that people should have access to it more than what is allowed today? Yes, absolutely. With a particular context, with a particular, there needs to be support. These can be extremely challenging experiences, and especially sometimes if you're called and it's to kind of clear a traumatic event in your life, or this needs to be properly managed. Otherwise you're gonna do more damage than you do good, for sure. But I think they are of tremendous value, and I think more research needs to be done with them. Of course, if you say research, what are we going to measure? What are we going to do? And that's where research to some extent is limited, because I think if you do research on these things, it needs to be highly personalized. Traditional research, you know, you recruit whatever 10, 100 people, or whatever your power calculations, or your so that you're sufficiently powered to detect whatever. So you power your study, and then you n equals whatever. But and then of course you, which is the golden rule, right? You anonymize everything, and everything is de-identified. In the context of this research, you need to consider the human. I think it's a critical part of it. You could try to introduce it in terms of inclusion criteria, that you look for more or less similar people, you know, like whatever age bracket, but it also needs to be a similar life stories, similar everything, because it plays so much into your overall experience. But But yeah, so my experience was, well, first of all, the glitch. So the how I experienced the glitch, as I mentioned, I was advanced spiritually. I was definitely, I knew meditation wasn't a problem. I could silence my mind fairly easily in everyday circumstances. So that wasn't a problem at all. And let me say this, if you go to one of these experiences, the reason why you're called is because you will have a specific purpose there. Your soul brings you there so that you have a particular experience that helps you on your path, on your particular path. So experiences are entirely different. That's why I said, from a research perspective, like you can never just say, well, this is going to be full of visuals and blah blah, and it's beautiful. My experience was definitely wildly different, and for a reason it makes complete sense. The first thing that I experienced with that glitch, for me the glitch was, I was perfectly able to silence my mind, but I immediately realized that, oh, okay, no, we're not here to silence anything. You're here to let it go. And that realization was within a moment. Within a moment, I realized, oh, shit. This is not what I expected. Because silencing the mind is fine. You can still have plenty of ego. You just silence it, but then it's silently there in the background. But as soon as it kicked in, I realized, oh, hang on. Oh, you're supposed to let go. Your higher self, is supposed to let go of the ego. So the ego was immediately triggered. Like, wait a second. I'm happy to be silent here, but don't don't ask me to leave the room or to go entirely. And it's interesting because years before that, there's something that's inked on my skin. It says, "Show me how to die," and that's exactly the experience I had in Peru. So it was it was letting go of ego. So I went through cycles, repeated cycles, up and down in the same nights. Typically those the big experiences, you're gonna be there for, might last 6 to 8 hours. So you can go through, and it feels like a lifetime, but you can go through cycles of the same thing. So it once like, oh my God, that was hard. Okay, let's do it one more time, and another one, and another one. And so for me, the visuals played a fairly minor role, and I'll get back to that later. It's in altered states, the restrictive view of, well, animals or living things typically have vision, they have audition, or they have other senses. So every sense is categorized, or it's individualized. Okay, we have the vision, we have the hearing, we have this touch, we have all the other things. So altered states immediately blow that away, and it's complete synesthesia, and not just the senses that we know, but everything. So everything is just energy. And so that's why it doesn't matter what your experience is. It could be highly visual because that's what speaks to you and triggers the right type of experience, or it could be an auditory one, or it could be an emotional one. And for me, it was largely emotional. And it's all about the emotion or the actual energy that's being triggered. How it's triggered, it doesn't matter, and everyone's going to respond to different things. So for me, it was really that an active dying, and dying with everything that's included in it. It's just you yourself. So it obviously led me down a path. It wasn't just an immediate mental death. We basically it is the real thing, right? You're basically dying. There's no difference. The mind doesn't make a difference whether you're actually sitting there. Some might say, well, it was all with it. Those substances, makes you hallucinate, makes you feel X, Y, and Z. That doesn't matter at all. It's all about the experience. Talking about the fear of participating, right? I invite everyone. Well, again, I shouldn't invite everyone, but the felt experience is reality. It is 100% real. And so I had to go give pieces of myself away. So I gave one piece away, and that's a hard one. You give a piece of yourself away, and it's like, it is a true unconditional letting go. That piece, I'll give it away. It is a real thing. And then I needed the moment. I needed okay, consciously, my consciousness is still here. Like everything's okay. I just gave a piece of mine away. So I had some energetic breathing. I didn't know what my body was doing. You're in a different dimension. So what your body's doing, you're probably out of body anyway. So I gave a piece of mine away. It took me a while to recover, and that interaction with everything there is an interaction. It's a fairly motherly interaction. So you're taken care of. So if you need a moment, you get a moment. Then I had to give another piece of me away, and another piece, and another piece. And at the end, there was nothing left. So it was just an active process of ego death, which there's absolutely no distinction with death whatsoever, because, well, it's difficult to explain. You just need to be in the experience to understand. So I had to do that several times over, and everything, once there was nothing left, and I was pure potential, I suddenly was yanked back into my body, right? And then I heard from other people that were sitting next to me in that night, it was almost like a panicked breathing, just because I always, when I was thrown back into my body, I'm like, geez, I haven't taken a breath in an hour or two. Like, surely I'm about to collapse. And so there was no reason for it, but I was breathing very heavily every single time I was yanked back into it. And then here we go again, let's do another round of that, and another round. And what certainly rang true, and we had discussions later on with the shamans and with everyone, and there is the common belief that you do not necessarily come back. And I feel the deep truth of that. You can, should you decide to do so with your higher self, or if that's your purpose, you could decide to leave right there, to not come back into your body. I know that for a fact, that I could feel that. But I came back, I had people to come back to, and I had other things to do, so it wasn't at the right time. But when that dimension opens, all sorts of things are possible. And so that was the biggest aspect of that experience. I had other experiences. I had, again, with that synesthesia, and people might ask me, obviously, ayahuasca, a lot of people record the purging, the bodily purging. I had almost no purging, and I had none. And the purging is an interesting one, because you are there for an energetic reason. It's not it's not a bodily one, of course, because your body is part of your trinity, so the body is always part of it. But the purging is not restricted to the physical body. The purging is always synced. So it's based on an emotion that you go through. It's based on, so the purging is intrinsically part of your experience. And it might just be a bodily reflection of the energy you just embodied, or the energy you probably just let go during that ceremony. You just let go of something, you purged it, and then the entire complete synesthetic reality you're in on the different levels makes you purge, but it's just a reflection of something much, much deeper. And I guess because I was spiritually, I've done a lot of work, before that, there was not much or nothing really actually to purge for me. So I did not have that experience. I was not part of that. But there are other things, where you, like for instance, it feels not dumb. I understand all these things are real, but like I also felt my heart was roaring like a lion, and I still know how it feels like. You might it when I'm saying my heart was roaring, like my heart was actually roaring. Like I cannot even remotely explain how that feels like. How could you explain something that physically? How would you explain a muscle, heart, everything that's attached to whatever the heart is, be able to do that deep soul grinding rumble? Like, doesn't even make sense. So you need to think about it energetically. It's all about energy, it's all about frequencies. And you experience things that are impossible to explain because it's impossible to conceptualize. There's nothing to conceptualize, it's all energy. And the biggest part by far, of those kind of experiences is the integration. What are you going to do if you go back home? Because you can have all these experiences, come back home and just, it's life as usual. And then you have stories to tell, on a Friday night over drinks. But typically, if you listen if you heard a calling, you know exactly what the experiences was for, and you can still refuse to acknowledge. There might have been questions that you asked, and you want specific answers. You got the answers. You can still refuse to acknowledge them because you don't like them, because you're somehow threatened by the implications, or maybe it invites you to change completely your life because you messed up, or all of this is possible. And also an experience you can have is to experience exactly zero, nothing. And that was also the case with people that surrounded me. And weirdly, they didn't have there was no reason for them to come. The only reason was because they tried everything else and they wanted to get a kick. And well, the energetic interaction with whatever you're interacting with was like, so you didn't come to learn anything, so I have nothing to offer you. There's nothing there for you. And so for me, this was quite a massive earthquake type of glitch for me. And while I said that, well, it doesn't just offer more landscape in your experiential life, but it offers a different dimension. It's still that I can still re-access that state. I can still re-access that dimension at will, because once you're there, energies, frequencies, planes of existence, it's more or less the same thing. If during reincarnation you access something, it's always much more easy to re-access it. You can go back, I can go back anytime, and which makes me constantly straddle both worlds, because I long to go back. I long to go back home, and this kind of opened the door. So I'm happy being here, but I have a foot there. I have a foot in the door, and it makes you reassess everything, what's important, what's not important, why you're here, and reassesses also obviously interactions with other people. So I think I shared more or less everything I wanted to share. But yeah, altered states, it's why it was a fairly significant chunk in my book chapter about the mind. The mind is okay, but there are other things that transcend it very, very easily, and I'm glad I went down that rabbit hole. Yeah, that's it for now. Happy to read your comments if everyone has had a quite transcendent experience, or what they feel as I say these things. Perhaps you might be very skeptical. Your point of view matters. You matter. Your subjectivity matters, even if you don't believe me. That non-belief matters as well. Till next time, much love.